LaDouche, Guy LaDouche. Men want to be him. Women want to do him. Is it his physique, impeccable style, and rugged good looks? No, it's his dedication to work out in the field. For LaDouche is not afraid to tackle the tough issues.
Admit it, you are totally hooked on drugs, right?
Yeah. And ask the questions you want to know.
Who gets to give Guy a lap dance?
Guy LaDouche, one of MXC's finest.
Check your local listings to watch LaDouche in MXC, only on Spike.
And welcome back. Christopher Page on the show.
Okay, thanks.
We were just talking about just various things to talk about, actors and celebrities and different kinds of bizarre sci-fi and horror movies, and is somehow, for whatever reason, MXC kept coming up in the conversation. We were going to have a few others on here, but again, life is crazy, so I just figured, hey, how about I just pull the trigger and we see where this chat goes?
Absolutely, why not? Well, and I tell you what, it's rather appropriate that you've decided to talk about that, because for anyone who doesn't know, Most Extreme Elimination Challenge, if I can get it out.
If you want to say it in the announcer's voice, Most Extreme Elimination Challenge.
was repurposed footage from a Japanese game show called Takishis Castle. And if I'm not mistaken, Amazon Prime is looking to reboot Takishi's Castle. They're going to do their own Takishi's Castle.
Okay, so now that's cool. I did not know that. So the show ran for about 4 years, from 03 to 07, and I was trying. I for the longest time, I always thought the DVD releases came way later, because they're each like 300 a piece, like collector's items, and apparently they came out around the same time, but they must have just sold out in a heartbeat, because I never saw them at any Best Buy or Walmart.
No, I had no idea that was ever released on DVD. I'm thankful that I was able to find a bunch. Well, now you can find them streaming on Freevee, which used to be IMDb TV.
Mm-hmm. Tubi and Pluto.
Which was how I've been watching them here recently. But prior to that, I have a bunch of DVDs that I burned from a DVR from when it was actually on air.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I definitely did plenty of recording, and it was just so annoying because, Spike started showing it like in the morning hours. And for the longest time, it was kind of like any other comedy show where it took everyone about a year, because IMDb was slow to update, and you had to realize, oh, well, they're not producing any new episodes anymore. So just enjoy what you got. But yeah, I didn't have any ability. I think my uncle did, but I didn't have any ability to take DVR episodes and put them onto any VHS or DVD format. But yeah, it would be often playing at 2 or 4 in the morning. I'd record it again, and sometimes you'd see about maybe the same episode 6 different times, and you had to fast forward for all the other just boner pill and Girls Gone
Right.
all that, and you're just
I think for the first few years, MXC was kind of the Mystery Science Theater of Spike TV.
I'm just so glad you said that. It was pretty much the impression we all got. It was kind of almost a Who's Line. I don't know if you've ever seen this segment where they do like the foreign dubbing or film dub game.
Oh yeah, on Whose Line Is It Anyway? Yes, I have.
It kind of had that nature, but yeah. So just for some clarification, I'm sure everyone else knows this, but for those who don't know, so all 4 of these main guys were members of the Groundlings. I thought I had seen that on their resume, but I'm glad Wikipedia re-clarified that. And the late Victor Wilson had been a story editor on Nickelodeon shows like Angry Angry Beavers and Cat Dog, and he passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 51 in 2015. He voices Vic Romano. Christopher Darga, whose credits include Bruce Almighty, various Star Trek, NYPD Blue type shows, and the Hudsucker Proxy, plays Kenny Blankenship. And John Cervinka plays Guy LaDouche and Captain Titio. And he's also been on just like numerous various shows, and he was like an announcer on various game shows. And Mary Scheer does all the female voices.
All the female voices.
All of them. You might know her from Mad TV and iCarly. And
they were all fantastic. I wonder if they had a hand in some of the writing as well.
It seems like they did, because a lot of it was kind of a mixture of script and ad libs, and much like Whose Line, if you study the same, and Mystery Science Theater, if you're studying the same tape, numerous times, eventually, you're going to be bored and experimental enough. You're going to come up with something that perfectly, matches the person's lips. And like you say, it was kind of one of those where you're just like, you're watching this and you're like, where did this come from? How have I not heard of this?
Well, and the fact that what comes out of these, well, not exactly out of their mouths, but what comes out of the dub is so fast and so clever. Watching it here recently, I have to admit, this show is extremely offensive.
Yes.
But it's sublime in its offensiveness.
Yeah, it doesn't quite get that Always Sunny thing where we shouldn't do this, but we're going to do it. But it does kind of blur the line between, say, just kind of a Whose Line skit and what's something more over the top, like some other kind of, I don't know, just some kind of, if Seinfeld or George Carlin went a little too far. Like, it does kind of have one of those where it's like, it's all cartoonish.
Yeah, it's the Sarah Silverman kind of comedy and
a little bit of that. Yeah. Jack Black, where it's like, whoa, okay, it's not PG.
there is a lot of fat shaming. There's homophobia. There's digs at conservatives, digs at liberals. It's almost sort of Mel Brookish. But
that's a good way to put it.
It's like lowbrow Mel Brooks.
Yeah, it is definitely a lower version. Like, if History of the World Part 1 went way more bottom of the barrel, but at the same time, like, I kind of figured it would go with that. So this show has just always been in my life in some capacity, one way or another. Like, someone would share a meme or a GIF and someone would just comment on Facebook, I love that show, I miss it. And like, it kind of just lived on in like internet forums. And
well, and that's just the thing. Like I said, there is a lot to be offended and to find offensive in this, but the way they do it and the writing and how they spin it, and regardless of whether you agree or you find it offensive, you have to admit it's clever as hell. It's like, I hate to use the word intelligent and lowbrow, but really, I mean, that's what MXC is.
Because it's kind of, like you say, it is just taking digs that are not progressive in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, I mean, just from the title alone, you kind of know what you're in for. So, like, at the same time, it's just, like you say, typically it does have stuff that I would normally be like, okay, just what the fuck, guys? It's just too much. But here it's just like, I don't know. It's somehow it does it in a way where you're kind of just ready for over the top. It's kind of like if you're watching people play a video game in the style of American Ninja Warrior, but and someone's reading off all the comments, and so in that junky way, like you say, it is organized, and you're just like, okay, so whether it's so bad it's good or whether it's just over the top, it is what it is. And they did put some thought into this, and the fact that it took everyone a while to realize, no, that's actually Takashi Kitano. That's Beat. That's the famous Japanese action crime gangster movie star before he was an actor, and he's being dubbed by all these guys who, again, like all these other shows we compared it to, it's just they had to create all these characters and backstory, and it is wild. It's like usually any other movie or show which has, again, just fat jokes or gay humor just hasn't dated too well. But with this, it just kind of just goes in that hole. Is like, it's kind of more of an Adult Swim kind of humor for me. Is like, that's kind of the reason it would often come on at like 9 or 10. Is like, this is just, again, like you say, lowbrow and just over the top. But like you say, it's creating its own world, and you just can't take your eyes off the screen because there's just so many outrageous stunts. There's one episode I can almost quote verbatim, which had like a bunch of digs at has-been celebrities like the Baldwins and Sizemore, and definitely a Charlie Sheen joke every other 4 episodes or something like that. Oh yeah,
absolutely. No one is. no one is immune from getting stabbed from MXC.
I think there was even a George Bush joke where they're like, "Oh, he's failing with no dignity," like Bush. Oh yeah.
Well, even more subtle ones and stuff. There was one I was just watching the other night that had White House workers versus I don't remember who the opponent was, but one of the people playing was like the chief mastigator. He pre-chews the pretzels. Yeah. All right. Oh, that's a really great George Bush joke there. How many people don't get that anymore?
Oh yeah, the political spectrum is so fucked up nowadays. There's like, this is gonna fly over someone's heads because
just the age of the joke and the event is so far past.
All these embarrassing things everyone wants to forget, and that unfortunately, as much as they scarred us in history, is like, you still got to just laugh at them. It's like, because it happened, and these comedians came up with this idea of just, well, what if all these contestants represented all the incompetent people in society?
Right.
Because I mean, you always do hear about how the White House at the end of the year will often like have people on opposing like sports teams, and so it is kind of funny to see that in the form of a mock game show. And like you say, they're always mispronouncing their words. And I actually introduced this to some coworkers when I worked at DFW Airport back in 2017, and they were sold within minutes. They're like, "How did this get on the air? And why is this so? Where are they going with this character?" And oh my god, this guy has the gay jokes. My god. And that same month, I kid you not, I just looked it up randomly, and there was a news blurb saying Spike TV, which was now relaunched as Paramount Network, was considering rebooting it. I'm like, oh, please do that. And of course, it's been 5+ years and I haven't heard anything. And
right.
I'm like,
I don't think this could I don't think this show as MXC could exist in today's market. I mean,
they would have to really like retool it. Like, instead of just, I don't think they ever went so far to make fun of mental health, just mainly call people idiots, but they do. Did they?
There's a few where they'd have a character and they'd do the little,
okay. Make fun of the Timmy South Park.
Yeah,
joke.
that kind of sort of thing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So there you go. So they would have to literally just go back to Three Stooges type territory. They would have to just have physical gags. And so then everyone shuts up and doesn't have to worry about, okay, I'm watching some bullying type humor,
Right. Well, I'm curious too, if Amazon Prime wants to redo the original Takishis Castle, we got to talk about the actual events that take place. I don't know they're going to be able to do this. The amount of paperwork that everyone would have to sign, to
apparently
compete, to do something like log drop or well, you name it. What was the one with the what do they call it, where they had to run across the water on the stones, and there's always a couple stones that are loose, and
that's the other thing. Yeah, it's just you're watching this actual thing that actually took place on some game show back in the 80s that's been redubbed in the 2000s, and you're just like, yeah, and that probably cost someone their life or gave them traumatic brain damage from being hit.
There's got to be broken. What you don't see is the broken bones, the bloody noses. It had to happen. It's like, well, I just can't see this going off. They're going to have to tone down the actual events so much.
It would be, I mean, almost every 2 years, there's been a stupid like game show with celebrities guest starring and getting eliminated, so to speak. There was one really awful one that had like a bunch of reality show stars and Terry Crews, and it was produced by Stallone. I don't remember the name of it. I just saw the ads and was like, not watching that. But it was one of those, it looked like almost like The Running Man or a video game,
right.
People trying to be action stars. I'm like, what is going on here? But yeah, I would not be surprised, with all the other, I would still much prefer any kind of version of this versus, say, something like, I don't know, I'm a Celebrity or The Mole or something like that. It would be,
absolutely.
Or even Survivor. It would have to be just, like you say, it would have to be, for better or worse, just really some careful thought put into the humor and just how to make it over the top without making it, some phobia hidden in there somewhere, shape or another. It would have to just be over the top, but not to where you're just like, okay, I feel like we got some hate speech underneath that punchline, and it would have to, like you say, it just, and you'd have to, I think what would be really ideal is if you just had two just very famous voice actors. So then you had ratings guaranteed, I mean, Vic Romano, I mean, whoever the hell you want to have voice him. I mean, you could even just change the characters. Like, I don't know. You could just get any kind of comedian in here. You could have,
right.
You could have Tenacious D in here. You could have some other improv comedians. I think Deborah Wilson could be really funny as some of the female voices. And, or you could maybe even do a live action, have a bunch of comedians who are doing all these physical gags and just have their stunt doubles out on the field, getting beat up or whatever, just because, and, nowadays people are going to want someone who's like doing all the Pixar voiceovers, or maybe H. John Benjamin with Bob's Burgers and Archer fame, someone who's like, we know your voice and it's just guaranteed comedy, whatever you say. Oh man. But yeah, rest in peace, Victor Wilson. That's a shame.
Yeah, that's a shame. No, I didn't know that. I saw just recently too, and this is kind of what's fun. MXC, I was obsessed with back when it originally aired. And I don't know if you're familiar with like the old Yahoo groups.
Oh man, there was a Yahoo group for this one.
There was a Yahoo group for MXC. And at the time I didn't have a Yahoo email account. I got a Yahoo email account just so I could join the MXC group. And in that group, of course, lots of fans of the show and everything, but it actually also had, I just lost his name. Give me a minute. It had Brad Leslie, the one American-looking fellow that was in Takishis Castle.
Oh, wow.
He was actually in the group. He'd come into the group and share stories about his time on Takishi's Castle and have fun. And he was awesome. And apparently he passed away in 2013 due to complications from kidney disease, which was really important, sad to hear. I didn't realize, kind of looked him up when just prepping to talk about this. And like, oh, I didn't know that. That's such a shame. And I didn't realize too, he was a Major League Baseball player. His career started in my hometown Cincinnati Reds.
Oh my God. So he's been everywhere.
I had lots of connections to him, and now I'm so sad that he's gone.
You kind of wish if you could teleport, in a non-pretentious timeline kind of way. It's like, can I ask you just one question before you go?
Yeah. I'm sure I didn't take him too terribly seriously, even in the group or whatever, but I kind of wish I had, and could have asked him a few questions, but oh wow.
That is cool though, that he got to, he's on the original show. So even though he's, being overdubbed and definitely mocked in some way on the new show, he's just a good sport about it.
Yeah, he seemed to be a real good sport about it. But and so yeah, like he joked along with everybody else and would share stories of the actual competitions and everything. It was very cool.
Totally. And well, that's cool because I was following GeoCities at that time, but I wasn't really following any of the Yahoo groups. And some of them, unfortunately,
I still have that email account.
Oh, do you really?
It doesn't do much other than collect spam, but I've got it.
I wonder if there's one on pro boards. It seems like that's where a lot of people go now if they want to form a fan group since like 2012 or whatever. Because there's various ones especially ones for like action stars. Like there's one that's dedicated to Keanu Reeves and Bruce Willis. There's one for Stallone and by Craig Ziblo as the moderator. And then there's one for Dolph Lundgren as well, the Dolph fans. So it was like, it would be cool if there was like an MXC kind of appreciation group in there somewhere.
Yeah, I would hope. I have to ask though, out of all the competitions that you would see on MXC, do you have a favorite?
I'm looking at the list of them because it's all a blur. So for many of those, you mentioned the log drops. I forgot about the wall bangers, dope on a rope, and sinkers and floaters.
That's the one with the running across the rocks. Yes.
I think that would have been my favorite growing up, but nowadays it'd probably be the rotating surfboard of death, just from the name
good
alone,
ones.
and they always had just unusual outcomes. And again, I realize, yes, someone got injured, but at the same time, they knew what they signed up for. And I just got to say, it is just, if you were to even just be watching this muted or just casually surfing, there's no way you would, change the channel, and because you'd be too busy going, holy shit,
I think that's what kind of helps soften some of the humor, or the bad taste humor
that's true too.
What you're watching is just so insane that you kind of just let it go.
That's true too. Sometimes the person who says the most tasteless comment is the same one who gets like a rock dropped on their head.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that was their way. It's just like, what if all the douchebags of the world challenged each other in a game in Japan and they got stomped on, or hit by a rock, or fell off a ledge?
I think all the competitions definitely had their moments when they were just, you couldn't believe what you just saw. The premiere episode of MXC did sinkers and floaters, and one of the first contestants was the character. Well, they gave him the name Rob Tussin. Yes. And he comes down and he tries to do a backflip, and he lands on his head, on his neck. And of course they add in sound effects that sounds like crunching celery, and then it cuts to Vic and Kenny, and they're both just looking, and they're stunned.
Yeah, they would. Kudos to the editors. They would really, obviously it was always going to be spurred out in the commentators and near the end. And it's like they would always find whatever insert, maybe, and in a non-schlocky way, even like digitally find whatever close-ups of other existing games they could find that had a total. It's like, yes, this guy's thinking, holy moly, right here. Let's insert that.
That's that's one of the funniest moments. If you're not hooked after seeing that, and if you're going to watch that and then tell me you're not going to watch the rest of that series, I just don't believe you.
And fortunately, I've never encountered anyone who's like been a bottom of the barrel kind of shitty person who's known about the show. For the most part, it seemed like it was just always anyone I knew who knew about it was just people who just, in high school, if I encountered anyone who knew about it, they were just watching all kinds of just outrageous sports and Adult Swim type programs. And this was just one of the other shows on at 2 a.m. that they could laugh at before they went to bed. And
right.
Fortunately, like you say, though, I saw that there was a show that called Wipeout on ABC, and apparently it got sued because it was a total like knockoff. But I see, when I saw American Ninja Warrior, I kept looking around. I was like, is that technically a remake of Takishis Castle? Because I can't watch any of those like all the way through, just because there's just not enough stunts, and the commentators are really annoying on that. Mm-hmm. And it's just like I just feel like someone nowadays, if anything, they should just take American Ninja Warrior footage and just redub it. Like
that would be funny.
Because if you can't get the rights to Takishis Castle, then there's no point. So you might as well just get some other. It would be, you'd spend less money on foreign sales if you just took another existing American game show. I mean, the closest thing I think you got to this now, for those who casually watch any of the talk shows, would probably be it's every Friday that he does this, but Jimmy Kimmel always has this one segment called Unnecessary Censorship. Mm-hmm. And kind of like the Daily Show, they just take they've got so many workers just casually getting footage from just like recent talk shows and everything, and just redubbing it, making it look like someone said something inappropriate that got bleeped out. But if someone could do that, then I'm sure it wouldn't take much for someone like who works on like Conan O'Brien or South Park to just add something wacky. And I mean, hell, and like you, I mean, I'm definitely a Misty. I do like a lot of Mystery Science Theater kind of stuff. I like some earlier riff track stuff. Nowadays, there's some that, like you say, do miss because they're too mean-spirited, or they kind of act like the movie is instantly beyond, saving, which is also kind of unfair. And there's been plenty of B-Mitch movies that they, riffed where I'm like, okay, it's cheesy, but it's not unwatchable.
Right.
You
It's
don't
not
have to
that bad. Right.
Don't beat up the actors, but they have some keepers. Like they recently did a Steven Seagal one, which I thought was just icing on the cake. Like that just wrote itself. They're like, he needed a stunt double even for the book tossing. My God. I'm like, so if you could get, some more clever riff tracks, Mystery Science type writers, and just some other guys who work for like, I don't know, Colbert or someone, Trevor Noah, and just like, just maybe even just get some other Mad TV guys who everyone gets along with and just redub it American Ninja Warrior episodes. I would be so down.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Because like you say, like there is some humor that if you watch now, you got to just still remind people, hey, it was the 2000s and everything was fair game before everyone realized what a dick they were being half the time.
Right.
And I would still much rather someone just watch this, because there still are some jokes that are going to go over people's heads. Like
sure,
the average rating for it was TV PG, because every once in a while I'd hear use of the word cock. I'm like, oh, I guess no one heard that.
You know what? That's a great segue, because I wanted to share what I think is to be. It has got to be one of my favorite exchanges between Vic and Kenny during a Dash to Death.
Dash to Death, yes, a great game.
This episode was the Adult Entertainment versus Home Improvement episode.
Yo, yes. Oh my God.
So here comes, a contestant doing the Dash to Death. And so here's the exchange between Vic and Kenny. Vic announcing who this is. And here's Mike Salzal. He's a sheetrocker moonlighting as a tub cocker. Tub cocker? So he likes fat chicks? Well, I wouldn't know, Kenny. Well, what does he do with his cock? He puts it in the crack. Oh, so he's in porn then. Kenny, listen. He's in construction. You say he sticks his cock in the crack, but he's in construction. I thought you said he was a sheep stalker. I said a sheet rocker. Plus, I was talking about caulking compound. He built a place to do this? Caulking. It's used to fill cracks. Am I missing something here? Well, thanks to you, Kenny, we pretty much missed the entire run.
Doesn't that also become a recurring gag also, where he ends almost every joke with Kenny misinterpreting something, saying, well, thanks to you, I missed the entire run.
Right.
Oh my God. If I saw that. Indeed. If I heard that, I think they softened it down on a re-airing or something. Oh God, that's great.
It was hilarious. I heard that the first time I heard it. I think I had tears.
That's something
so hard.
It's almost kind of a what's it called? I can't speak.
It's like an Abbott and Costello routine.
It's an Abbott and Costello meets kind of a what's it called for tongue twister? Yeah, just I'm just saying it is all that. I'm sure that probably took 20 takes just for them to make one that made it to area to say it with a straight face and actually deliver it without twisting all the nouns and verbs. Oh, Jesus, that's great. Comedy gold. But yeah, if they were going to do something like that, yeah, they would have to definitely just like get some great voice talent who can definitely say a lot of stuff like that on the fly.
Yeah, well, it's the writers. I mean, you have to have the writers that
might be
come
it too.
Up with this.
Get a good comedian who can be involved with the writing staff. And I mean, there's just so many other people out there. I'm sure if you got, I don't know, someone from like Community or even Psych, they'd be heavily involved.
Or just get these. No, but like you were saying, these guys came from improv groups. Just go into that well again. There
you go. Groundlings, and if they're not available, there's so many other LA improv. I'm sure. Oh, well, I just interviewed him. I just interviewed Cole Stroughton. I'm sure you could get him and Janet Varney or any of his other crew from San Francisco Sketchfest. They'd happily do it.
Right. Yeah,
as long as the check cleared.
I'd rather go that route. I'd rather it be writing from people that know how to write improv that's really what this is, even though that's what it starts out as anyway.
But it's improv that like works as opposed to because
it starts out as improv, but then it gets polished into just actual sheer genius. And I would like to hear voices I don't recognize.
Well,
I don't want a comedian that I'm going to hear on the radio.
Well, that's just it too. And unfortunately, there's just so many people on the radio, unfortunately, nowadays who just come off as just an excuse to just kind of vent and be a dick. And you need someone who can be, like you say, ballsy and over the top without, trying to just, stir up, the cuckoo's nest or just get everyone offended to where it just sounds like it's just, and like you say, you would kind of need someone who they could carry anything, whether it's be an opening stand-up act or even at a comedy roast. Like you would need someone who can just see what's on the screen and just have just an honest reaction to it that is just clever and not overdone and, like you say, just shaming people. And
you hit on the $100 word there is clever. It doesn't, you can't write it and just be, try to think the best way to put this. You can't write it just to be rude. Right. And it's not about just being rude. It has to be clever. You can get away with being a little rude or even a little offensive if you're clever enough.
Totally. And
in this situation, I'm not recommending that people go out and make really clever insults for anybody.
Oh yeah, and I've worked on
in real life.
And I'm with you. I've worked on indie films, and I would see people try to ad lib, and they sucked at it because they had no improv background or adaptability, or they just wanted to have the last word, and that negates the whole point of improv. If Chris comes up to me and said scenario and says, "Cam, why do you got 5 heads on your shoulder?" I have to acknowledge it. Well, 2 of them are for eating, and the others for because I got a big mouth. Just whatever improv scenario or weird scenario we come up with, we got to be consistent and come up with it. And yeah, see, these guys are great because they created this fictional world on top of an existing footage. So that's easier. They didn't have to film all this outrageous stuff. They had to just dub it over and give all these characters that they keep seeing in the various footage just a random backstory that was just out there.
Yeah. And the amount of work to do this too, if you think about the hundreds of hours of footage they had to watch and try to find the best bits. And then they had to go, okay, these are all the best bits. Now, which best bits actually can we combine into an episode?
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty.
And now we got to do it. Yeah, now we got to do it 21 more times this year.
21 more times. And there's a bunch of footage we probably can't use because there's probably a contestant who's clearly just so injured that's just not funny. We don't want to mock them or streaking or like you say, there might have been a humor ad lib that just went a little too far and just you can't air it. It's just going to piss everyone off and lose sponsors.
Exactly. And then you run into, I know there was issues with rights and stuff because they had like the Japanese Takishis Castle, they had like monster specials, and when they went to the MXC, they had to edit out a lot of the creatures that were used because they were copyrighted. There was Ultraman characters and things like that, and they had to cut them all out. So
that's wild. And Wikipedia heavily notes that they did a few fan competitions, but unfortunately they had to cancel them, and there just wasn't enough fanfare or something like that. But Paramount had, Viacom TV had to put out money for those. So, I mean, but those were just kind of minuscule, more like people win a random contest and they got to just have their friends' names be listed on screen as contestants. So it's like, you're the contestant who gets hit in the face with a rock or gets pelted.
Cameron Baba Ganoush.
Baba Ganoush, perfect. Well, I will say Christopher Romano has a good ring to it, so you get to be the host. Well,
I'm available.
I get blasted with harpoons and held nearly on a water trap. There you go. And that would just be, like you say, it'd be just fun but like you say, you just have to be very careful about it. And you just, I mean, like you say, there would have to be a very well thought out like strategy, but I would be totally cool if they just used the MXC brand and came up with like different characters. And, you know, if they just wanted to keep Vic, but change and Kenny but change the surname or what have you. And maybe even have an inside joke saying, do I know you from somewhere?
Right. Yeah.
That'd be funny too. I'd be like, ask me, you know, you should have asked me that back in 2003. You know, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, like you say, the lesser known talents, the better. There's so many other voice talents who do video games and other cartoons who never get mentioned, who can totally kill it, whether it's at a live circus show or a random award show. They could totally be game for something like this. Like you say, it's tough to replicate because this was back when cable TV was trying to do all kinds of things, and before you know it, the market was becoming more oversaturated. Before you know, we had this whole physical versus digital, you know, contest, and just everyone being a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. You know, so.
Right.
Oh man, yeah. This has been fun, just summing it up, because like you say, it's just an unusual and just a total rarity in just I guess you could call it underground kind of comedy, because like there's just so many other shows now where it's like everyone was doing a imitation of a Seinfeld type sitcom or a, like you say, a Simpsons type cartoon. So to see someone actually, this is like this footage was all in front of them, and they were kind of doing what people might do on an ESPN or Fox Sports type show. It just so happened to be on a channel aimed at guys, you know, Spike TV, and they had to mix raunchy with just other pop culture theme kind of humor. Is like that was not an easy task. And like you say, some of it is dated, but you just kind of just look past it and just say, hey, as toxic as this technically is, it still is just a very just bizarre concoction of creativity.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Don't laugh at that bit. Just acknowledge the creativity and laugh at the bits that, you know, you feel comfortable laughing at.
Right. And there's so many episodes, like they did like a dozen episodes each season. So there's plenty of episodes where you just don't find it funny. Literally, you know, this is the brilliantness of, you know, clicking, you know, on streaming. You can literally just go to the next episode and find an episode that is funnier. It's not like with, I don't know, a sci-fi or horror show where you got to suffer for 5 bad episodes to get to 5 great episodes. You know? Oh man. So thank you so much for being on here. And what do you have planned next on Time Shifters? You've done such a great job from covering everything from Space 1999 to just some very underseen indie films that are just dying to get an audience.
This year we are doing nothing but time travel films.
Woo!
So it's been a lot of fun. So this is the year of the time traveler, and we've had a good time doing everything from the films that you know to a few of the underground and independent films that you might not heard of, and checking all those out.
Back to the Future and Transfers inspired, while others that are just kind of like, you know what, this person had one location, instead of spending it on, say, you know, a witch doctor gothic film or a zombie invasion, they spin it on someone using a time travel device. Pretty cool. And you've had some very fun interviews. You've also had just, again, you know, your co-host, and you just really just have a good, I don't want to say it's a Kenny and Vic type relationship, but you guys are really just so good at just back and forth. And really, I mean, it was so much fun re-listening to even the Commitments episode recently, because I mean, you guys really just
you went back a little ways. Yeah, you went back to when
I was bored.
Matt and I were, when Matt was the co-host, and that was going back a ways.
Right, but it was cool because like you brought like 2 different audiences. You had someone who wouldn't have seen it otherwise, but really liked it, and you had seen it all your life and just was still in your VHS collection. And it was just, you need that kind of fun nostalgia, because I mean, there has been kind of this growth for people wanting to find just kind of long lost movies and just other stuff that their dad or their uncle used to talk about them with, but they had no means of watching it at the time. If
Sure.
you missed the taping, you missed it altogether. You know,
Right. Well, that's definitely what we've been doing here lately with the time travel. We definitely are covering things like Back to the Future is certainly one everyone's seen and everyone knows about. But we also cover something from like 1973 called Idaho Transfer, which was
that was a fun one.
time travel movie directed by Peter Fonda, starring absolutely nobody.
Back when that was a marketable thing, you could just go on the poster.
Names. Yeah, they were just local people that Peter Fonda found, and when you want to be in my movie, and they made a time travel movie.
And it's even funnier when you guys find a movie that is more schlockier and you're struggling to find something nice to say, and then you're like, well, damn it, now I found a plot hole. Maybe I should rewatch this. Oh boy, when I got to suffer through boring title credits or music that's just out of place, then we're way better in a better movie. But you have such a good, like you say, just constructive take on whatever movie is handed on your doorstep. And I always look forward to whatever you're posting in the group, because I know you will have found just some movie which someone actually, wanted to actually put out. They legit wanted to make this movie, as opposed to, well, a Roger Corman or a silent equivalent will pick it up somewhere.
Right. Well, in between all our time travel films, we are also reviewing, when we get a hold of the occasional screener of some independent film that's recently found distribution or something, and we'll watch that, and we call those our time hops, because they're more recent or in fact in the future. And we'll do short episodes that we'll post in between of our regular episodes. And yes, and there's a lot of times where we watch those films where they're just not really good movies at all, but we do admit that, hey, someone got this movie made, which is more than we've done. And so we try very hard to be fair and be nice. And we look for something positive, even in a film that, maybe there isn't all that much there, but typically there's something that you could, hey, that one actor, we're going to keep an eye on that, or the director did the music, whatever, someone's worth keeping an eye on. Right.
This sure could get retooled and maybe work better as a web series or a
it needed one more pass through the editing, or something like that.
And unfortunately, having worked for blogs before, I have unfortunately seen behind the scenes how sometimes, people will submit screeners all the time. Renee Perez is notorious for doing all these Charlie Bronson type knockoff movies and not caring what anyone has to say about it, because in his opinion, any publicity is good attention. And you're like, well, what's the point of even me leaving a review for you? But then there are other ones where I've seen some people, they would get very ballsy. Like, you're like, okay, don't leave a review if you have nothing nice to say. I'm like, well, just because he doesn't want to hear it doesn't mean I'm not going to say it. But at the same time,
I try really hard to do if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Occasionally there was one film that I did pan a little hard at the top of the episode, only because the trailer was so good. I watched this trailer and it gave me chills, and I watched this movie and
none of that was found. But
none of that suspense, none of the mystery, none of the spookiness that I was expecting, none of it was there. And I just tried to keep it as a pros and cons. Like, hey, the actors that are labeled on this thing are well used. Unfortunately, the thing is slow as molasses and feels unfocused. But it gets even more annoying when almost every time when something gets posted, reviews are by people who clearly worked on the movie, and you can tell because they'll be like, so-and-so has made a revolutionary movie. I'm like, yeah, that's definitely one thing I do not know, because I have read those reviews too, where you can't help but think that the only reason someone wrote a review like that is either they worked on the movie, they're a family member or friend of someone that worked on the movie, or they're some outlet that really wants more screeners and they're a friend of the blogger who also, or they're just looking for the in. They're looking for, an in to the studio or the distributor to keep sending them movies or send them on to red carpets or something. And you can't have watched the same movie I did and write a review like that.
And they won't even hide it because sometimes you can tell because the surname is clearly the same as the producer.
Well, yeah,
or,
possibly. Yeah, maybe.
And it's 5 stars, and you're like, it's maybe a 3 out of 5. It's not a 5-star. 5-star means it has no flaws. And come on, we're talking about it. Independent movie.
I will never write a review hoping to get swag, you know?
Right. Never be pretentious or mean or just like, oh, looks like someone filmed it in their basement. It's like, well, there's nothing wrong with filming in a basement. Yeah. Just make it entertaining.
Exactly. Oh, some of my favorite movies were filmed in basements. I'm fine with that. You know, if you
talked about improv. I mean, Beverly Hills Cop 1 and Caddyshack were all improv. And it's like, I was down with people doing a movie like Police Academy or Super Troopers where it was all just people dicked around and they somehow managed to connect the dots all to each other. And unfortunately now when I see people doing improv, it just seems like you say, it's just unfocused and just barely even a movie.
Right. Well, to bring it all back around, I do thank you for all the kind words for on the podcast. I do totally appreciate it.
It's really been fun. And I take it you still be doing a few more MST3K on riffs because it's been so funny.
We have talked about that. This year we have dedicated to time travel, the year of the time travel. But next year we've already discussed it. That yes, I think we will be bringing back the MST3K on Rift because that was a lot of fun. We having a good time with that, and we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, and a lot of those are out of print, but it was funny seeing which ones were available to you, like Giant Spider Invasion.
It's fun digging up and finding out the what was left on the MSG cutting room floor.
Right. And like it said before, it gets so annoying when some people are like, oh, they did an unfair treatment. I'm like, well, to be fair, they got a satellite, cable or antenna channel edit of it, so whatever they had that's what they had to work with, and sometimes they didn't have a choice. It's too graphic to show on TV, so they're
right. Yeah, exactly.
I can't show naked butts or gory explosion. It's just gonna have to go.
Yeah, it's always a surprise when you watch a film if you've only seen on MST and you watch it in real uncut, and it's like, whoa, there's nudity. Wow, wasn't expecting that.
And then there's other ones where you're just like, I'm glad I didn't see the uncut version of it because it's just more dead space, like Hobgoblins. It's just more shots of the Patrons Club. And you're like,
well, this could really use nudity.
Right. Or this could use just at least a hysterical, like, costumes or sword fight or something to just, like you say, just, if you're going to be, Alec Baldwin once said, if you know you're gonna suck, at least suck with dignity or some shit like that.
Exactly.
And it's like, and that says a lot. If you're gonna be in a movie, don't be the worst part of it, and it's just so hard to even explain that to people because they like to think everything is either good or just bad from the get-go. And it's like, no, we're gonna be very forgiving for a movie that is trying its hardest and it just didn't succeed versus one that's intentionally bad, like Trauma or what have you.
Right. Yeah, so that's what's going on at Time Shifters. And yes, Orphan Entertainment is still plugging away once a month, public domain movies. We've been having a lot of fun with that and kind of uncovering some early Hollywood.
Right. And you definitely had plenty of that. I just added to my IMDb watch list and other ones where I was like, I saw that years ago. I don't know if I should see it again, but I love your take.
Yep. Yeah, it's that's been a lot of fun. No matter what we do on Time Shifters, sometimes the films are great, sometimes the films aren't so bad. Orphan Entertainment, even when the films aren't all that awesome, it's still neat to see how they did movies back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and how different they are from movies today. And in some cases, how similar. It's amazing how much we've uncovered where it's kind of like, so I think this is where that started, when that trope, before it was a trope, we saw it in the film from 1935. This was the
Snyder cut of the 50s.
Yeah.
And you guys definitely even introduced me to those music artists that you use as your theme song. I was like, man, how have I not heard of these electronic artists? Some good stuff here.
Good. Glad you like them.
Great to just play at a party, just one casual evening.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me on, Cameron.
Anytime, man. And Chris, I just hope you're staying safe out there and always staying in good spirits.
Oh, absolutely. So I think I know how we should end this conversation. What do we always say? Don't get eliminated.
LaDouche approved.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up